get together as a tourism community and share what our challenges are, learn some more information about the wider tourism industry and what's happening there, as well as collaborating on some ideas for recovery and how we can bring some vitality back to Morgan Hill. So before we get into the welcome and introductions, I just want to run through how the agenda will work today. So we will go through two presentations, one about Visit Morgan Hill, and then we will hear from the California Travel Association. We have our speaker today, Barbara Newton. And then afterwards, we will have a questions and discussion segment where we'd like to hear from you about some of the things you've been seeing, ways you may have been pivoting your business, and come up with some takeaways for what we can work on, particularly in the tourism industry, to bring some recovery. And I think Michelle here, she's kind of our technical admin. So if you have anything, you know, related to this Zoom meeting, she can help with that. And she did mention there's a raise your hand function if you have a question. There's also a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen if you want to type in a question that we can get to towards the end. So I just want to welcome everyone. We have several of our Visit Morgan Hill board members on the call today. One of those is our board chair, Michael Meredith. And so Michelle, if we're able to allow Michael to say hello, he should be dialed in. Michael is the general manager of the Hampton Inn here in Morgan Hill.
Yes, hello, good morning to everybody. It's so good to see everybody healthy and safe here on webcam. I apologize, I am not on webcam myself today. I am joined by Andrew Firestone and some other people from the board as well. I noticed Carrie Benjamin, who is our sports representative, is here as well. I think it's such a great concept that we are coming together to have a discussion about how we are going to move beyond the challenges that we are currently seeing. Obviously, those of us in the hotel industry have probably been some of the hardest hit as we battle this COVID-19 dilemma. So we are inspired to see so many people taking part in a discussion that's going to move us past this challenge, like I mentioned before. So looking forward to a very broad discussion, how we're going to sort of lock hands and move forward through this, because it will be key. I know I've talked with Krista yesterday and throughout the time period that there was something I said that Morgan Hill is sort of the backyard of the Silicon Valley. Maybe that's one of our sort of concepts, the new backyard to things, but backyard sales is going to be something that we're going to probably need to heavily invest in. And I think that Morgan Hill, as somebody who you know, services a wider market to the north of us as well, gives us a unique opportunity to come together and be able to do that. So I'll kick it back to Krista, but looking forward to anything that I can possibly contribute as well. And I'm sure our board members will have lots to say in addition.
Thank you, Michael. So while we're here doing introductions, I also wanted to see if we can list the results of our poll. And you'll see several different business segments listed here. So Michelle, what did it look like? So we have about 37% government and community organizations, 19% outdoor sports and recreation, 15% hotels, and then 11% spread between dining, retail, attractions, history, and art. So thank you. That gives us an idea of who's here and what we're going to talk about. So, as I introduced myself earlier, I'm Krista. I am the Executive Director of Visit Morgan Hill. And so who we are is a destination marketing organization, and we are promoting tourism on behalf of the Morgan Hill Tourism Business Improvement District. And so what this is it's an assessment on the local hotels that is invested back into promoting the destination and bringing overnight visitors. And we are a nonprofit and we are not in a membership model, but our efforts are to go back into the assessed businesses. So our mission is to promote Morgan Hill as a visitor destination with numerous amenities to offer. And we're the gem of the South Silicon Valley. We're well positioned on Highway 101. We have numerous leisure activities with the winery, great dining downtown, cultural history, agriculture. There are so many things that we are able to promote and package and create some destination awareness of Morgan Hill. And so the way that we do that is that we are developing a strategic plan. So Visit Morgan Hill is a relatively new organization. Our assessment was established roughly a year ago, and establishing the strategic plan in partnership with an agency. So we're going to develop our priorities and our positioning for Morgan Hill. So as Michael was sharing earlier, you know, how are we going to position the destination in order to get some of those target markets coming into our community and enjoying the wineries, dining in the restaurants, etc. And so our strategic plan is based in 4 main disciplines. So partnership, operations, marketing, communications, and business development. And so all of our efforts will fall under those categories, and our strategic plan will outline what the priorities are within those areas and the tactical ways that we're going to approach it. So clearly with, you know, our current shelter in place, that's going to play into our plan and definitely affect our outcome with that. And then as I was describing Morgan Hill, we need to develop a brand. So we are looking to articulate what is it about Morgan Hill that makes it an attractive destination over another competing destination. So the branding incorporates all the elements, and it fine tunes it down to that brand message that will be memorable and effective in Visit Morgan Hill's marketing efforts. Okay. And so COVID-19 has eviscerated the travel industry. With orders to shelter in place, the hotels are not having guests, people are staying at home, no one's traveling, and then all that related spending is lost with that. And so I just saw a stat from Visit California that the economic fallout is projected at 9 times worse than 9/11. The impacts are felt across distribution channels and different industries, as well as impacting our government. So, you know, taxes coming into the city for public services, we're going to feel a hit there as well. So the efforts of Visit Morgan Hill, we want to position ourselves in a strong way so that when we are able to move about freely again, that we have a brand recognition, that people are aware of the amenities we have to offer, and that they feel safe and comfortable coming here. So That is something that we're going to keep in mind again with our strategic plan, and hopefully see some recovery, however that looks for us, you know, as the different orders unfold. So, you know, in response to COVID-19, Visit Morgan Hill has been partnering to deploy information. So really what our role has been is to share the most recent public health information and business resources. And so that has been posted on our website. So it's somewhat twofold. There's more of a public facing, you know, here's what the Santa Clara County orders are in case anyone was thinking of traveling right now. That information is there. And then there's also the resources side, which is more for the local industry, you know, information for employers and their employees, and where to find the most recent and accurate information. So I think as many of us here, or all of us here, have recognized, there's a flurry of information. You know, some of the financial assistance programs are changing daily. And so we are really working hard to make sure that we have the most accurate and up-to-date information available. We're also in communications with the hotels about who's open, how this is affecting their operations and their staffing. We're in communication with the state and the state marketing, tourism marketing organization, and keeping an eye on the industry data, the lodging data in particular, what those projections look like, because that has such a financial impact of not only taxes, but bringing people into our communities to spend at local businesses. And we are partnering with our other local community organizations. We're leveraging each other's networks to get this information out to different business sectors within Morgan Hill, and coming up with some collaborative ways to bring future support as well. So here are some of the organizations we're partnering with: the Chamber of Commerce, Choose Morgan Hill, Wineries of Santa Clara Valley, and the Morgan Hill Downtown Association, and the Restaurant Association. So we have weekly collaboration calls where we brainstorm and strategize how we're going to deploy information, who's sharing what with whom, and also working on some local business support ideas. And so the first example of this is the Chamber of Commerce. And I'm not sure if Brittany was able to log in yet. She did have another meeting, but I believe she will be popping on at some point. But she created, along with her team, a couple of Facebook pages. And these pages are groups, and they allow people to post their restaurant takeout and delivery. And so that one has been incredibly successful. Restaurants are able to share their specials, their offers, their menus, and they've gained quite a following. And then there's also another one that is more business focused, personal service, retail, and that's the Don't Isolate, Virtually Congregate. And so that's where businesses can post their different virtual offers, online orders, gift cards, anything that they are doing to keep their business going in this time when people are not able to come in person. And so we also have the Wineries of Santa Clara Valley here. We have Stacy on, and she can share a little bit about what some of the wineries are doing. Are we able to get Stacy on here?
I just unmuted, so it's
okay.
So yeah, so we have adjusted our messaging across the board on our website as well as on our social media pages. So we created this landing page to the left that is visible right when people head to our website, so that people know that our wineries are offering delivery, curbside shipping, curbside and shipping. So once they click on those buttons, it directs them to a long document that breaks down each winery's offerings. So we're seeing a lot of visits on our website due to that, which is great. We also have some of the wineries that have been involved in virtual tastings, walking the vineyard, talking about, but the state of the vineyards that they stand as of right now. We've got winemaker interviews. And then we also reached out to some of the restaurants as well as some of the bakeries, and have asked the wineries to work with some of these restaurants and see if they can come up with plans to either create menus around a wine that they can pair with and sell that as a package. Yesterday, Kerrigan announced their partnership with Lawson's Bakery. So Lawson's is building a package for wine as well as to go with their sweets. So that was good to see. So it's building those relationships, and hopefully they'll help sustain each other in the short term. So that's been really exciting to see. But overall, our wineries are pretty much all of them are trying to do as much as they can to keep engaged with their followers on social media, as well as reaching out to the wine club members. Some of them have actually called them directly, not a sales pitch, to their wine club members, but just pretty much just checking in with them to really show that, they care about them. It's not necessarily just about sales, but just to reinforce that strong relationship.
Thanks, Stacy.
Yes.
And we'll have a chance towards the end for perhaps some of the local businesses, wineries, restaurants, stores, etc., to maybe even share in more detail some of the things that they're doing. So also, I just want to point out, here are several resources for businesses. Again, we're keeping these as updated as possible, and these are hyperlinks. So this will be available in the deck and webinar recording after this is over. But I want to point out this Choose Morgan Hill COVID-19 Update PDF. This is very helpful in my opinion, because it has everything kind of in one compact destination. So I just wanted to point that out as we go through the rest of this presentation. And before I hand it over to Barb, I just want to say, as she's going through her advocacy efforts in regards to the tourism industry, maybe think about your business and what are some tactical things that the city or tourism industry, what are some things that you need beyond financial support to recover in this new reality we have, where we may not go back to how things were before. We're going to have distancing. We're going to have to limit gatherings. So just a couple things to think about as we go through California Travel Association's presentation here. So with that, I will turn it over to Barb.
Sorry, I had you on mute. Thank you, Krista, and hi, everyone. It's great to meet you virtually, and just want to extend my support and unity for you through this. I know we're probably all sick of the words COVID-19, but it has dramatically affected our lives and our businesses, and I'll walk you through CalTravel, but the summary, really, the headline is that we're here to help in any way that we can. So with that, Krista's going to forward my slides. Let's see how that works, Krista. Thank you. California Travel Association, if you haven't heard of us, we're the united voice for the travel and tourism industry in the state. We are an advocacy organization, so that's our primary mission, supplemented by collaboration and education to amplify our voice, primarily at the state level, but wherever we need to protect the interests and investments of the California travel industry. So because we're the umbrella trade organization for the state, we have a wide variety of members. CVBs, DMOs, resorts, amusement parks, sports venues, rental cars, other industry, narrow industry associations like the State Hotel Association, Restaurant Association, Attractions and Parks Association, CalChamber, and then ad agencies, media companies, and many others that where tourism is their primary business. So let me explain some of the jargon that also often pops up when we talk about tourism. CVB, DMO, Tourism Board, those are all ways of describing what Visit Morgan Hill is, an organization responsible for promoting community as a destination and also as a great place to live and work. Also, TIDs, TBIDs are used often in my presentation and in the tourism industry in general. It's an assessment funding model, as you know, since you recently have one, funded almost always by hotels, and it's raising money to enable these destination marketing organizations to do a great job representing the destination. So why TBIDs? They're steady, efficient funding with a really proven strong ROI. California's been the leader in TBIDs, and they range from our largest cities, the gateway cities, to the smallest communities. It's usually a percentage of room night sales, which I believe it is for Visit Morgan Hill. It can sometimes be the number of visitors as well, or hotel guests. Charge is usually passed on to the customer. The real key for a DMO is that the funds are collected and then used for the benefit of the payers. And while that's putting more heads in beds, that also has a spillover effect because it means that retail benefits, dining, wineries, other attractions all benefit from people coming into the destination and spending money while they're there. And the funds can be used on marketing, group and leisure sales, promotions, email marketing, advertising, social media. And why are they more helpful than individual businesses marketing themselves? Not even the largest organizations like the Disneys or the Universal Studios can do as good a job of selling a destination as a DMO because it can bring overall strategy and marketing. Pooling those funds allows you to get scale and efficiencies. You can bring professionals with best practices to this challenge. And what we've seen is the ROI for TBIDs, it's really strong. It's generally 6-to-1 to 20-to-1, so bringing in up to $20 for every dollar spent. And one of our probably most successful examples of an assessment model is Visit California. It's essentially a statewide TBID and has done a great job of promoting our state. So let me talk a little bit about the difference between CalTravel and Visit California, because I get that as a question in almost every presentation I give. We work really closely with them. We partner with them. We try very hard not to step on them. We have different, or step in each other's workloads. We have very separate missions. So we're business to business. We're working with state and national legislators as an advocacy resource. We're funded by membership and sponsorship. Visit California's job is to promote the state to visitors out of state around the world. And now with COVID-19, an increased focus on in-state marketing to just get people out traveling. So they're the branding and marketing resource for all of you. And they're primarily talking to consumers and are funded by assessments. We have the next slide. When we talk about tourism in California, this is 2018 numbers. when we go in and talk to legislators or other industry groups, we're talking about how much we generate in direct spending, and it was $140 billion last year. 9 years of really strong growth for the industry. Really importantly for legislators, talk about the fact that we raise almost $12 billion in state and local taxes, and also that we're providing 1.2 million jobs. That's what we talked about in 2019, but what we're talking about in 2020 obviously is a very different world. Krista had just related some of those updated stats on the fact that COVID has had 9 times the effect of 9/11. These numbers are from the last week in March. We just got updated numbers on those yesterday. Now California spending is down 88% compared to the same week last year. And we're just seeing continuing degrading of our industry. I'm sure not news to any of you. But when we talk it, we still have a, even though our numbers are much smaller, we have a great message when we are talking to legislators on the state and national level. We're one of the industries that's hit hardest by this, but we are also the engine that can really jumpstart the recovery. And we saw that in other recessions and economic hard times. When visitors come, they spend money in a destination, they're paying taxes, but not using those taxes that they can then go to teachers, police officers, local services. Really importantly, when you talk about a vibrant community, visitors are essential to keep those best restaurants in business, to keep a vibrant downtown with great retail, to keep hotels and events, wineries, breweries, other local businesses alive. And I think most people, when they think about it, really do understand that value of travel beyond just heads and beds. So let me talk a little bit about what we do as far as advocacy. We have a contract lobbyist and a staff lobbyist in Sacramento. And our focus really is to raise our visibility and generate support for policies that help us and make sure that policies that don't help us, that are really detrimental to the travel industry, do not move forward. And the way that we do that, when we are least effective is when we're taking a position on a bill after it's already been passed through committee and ready for a vote. We do that, but that's kind of the last piece of advocacy. What we like to do is start at the very bottom of that pyramid, where we're collaborating and educating legislators before we have an issue that we need to ask for help on or have a conflict on. So we're out there all the time talking about the value of the travel and tourism industry and building relationships. We also reach out to other organizations to build coalitions, Cal Chamber, downtown associations, and those individual industry associations, so that when we do need to bring our voice on an issue, we can pull together the broadest and strongest organizations to help us. And then we engage with legislators in every way that we can, so that when we get to that last point at the top of the pyramid, our voice does matter. So every year, our Government Relations Committee and our leadership figure out what are we going to do for our priorities. Because there are usually 2,000 to 2,500 bills introduced in Sacramento every year, and we're an umbrella trade organization, there are a ton of bills that could affect our industry. So we have to really narrow down our focus on what are the ones that are most important to focus on, and promoting California as a visitor destination, facilitating travel, supporting responsible long-term business development projects, protecting us from the unnecessary costs of doing business, always a challenge in California. We really do encourage and want to support innovation in our field. We want to make sure, especially being California, that we are supporting great new opportunities for businesses and for visitors to take advantage of travel. But we also want to make sure there's an equal playing field. And it's a real problem in California, where established businesses have so many regulations that weigh them down and add costs, that it creates a great opportunity for disruptors to come in and make a lot of money quickly before laws catch up with them. So we try to ensure an equal playing field for competitors. And then just supporting legislation that enhances, improves the overall visitor experience. So there are a lot of bills. I have some resources listed here. You can always go on our website and check them out. We did a survey of our membership in January about what were the hottest topics and issues for their businesses and organizations. And we had already started to see some concern about economic forecasts, that we were starting to see a little bit of erosion of that really strong growth for 10 years. Homelessness has risen every year and is a really big issue, as I'm sure you know, but across the state, from our largest cities to our smallest ones. Destination management, and then you can just see the list of topics and what people were talking about. That was January. Since now, probably 90% of our conversations is about coronavirus and its effect on our industry. It's really unusual to have one issue take so much of our time and energy, but that is the facts right now. So on a state level, where we usually focus, as I mentioned, there are 2,000 to 2,500 bills being introduced, but this year is really different. We started out on that track, strong budget, we were in a good place. We had a supermajority of Democrats in the Senate and the Assembly, and they had a whole raft of new bills that we were starting to deal with. Coronavirus changed all that. They had to go on recess. That was supposed to be coming back in the middle of April. Now they're on recess till at least May 4th and probably longer. And because of this, they're pulling a lot of the bills. There's not the money to deal with it, and there's not the time to really get that through. So they're really focusing their efforts. In some ways, that's good for our industry because it's fewer really challenging bills to work with. But what we're seeing now is that the legislation is going to be really focused on COVID-19, wildfire, healthcare, and just figuring out the budget. So we've been really focused since the legislature's been on recess. We've been really working with our governor and GoBiz in order to work through these issues. We have a weekly meeting with GoBiz and the other travel industry associations.
Barbara, I have a question.
Sure.
So for those on the phone, or on the webinar, is there anything specific that they can do to support? So, you know, we have these representatives listed here. You know, what can the tourism industry do to help support some of this and get, you know, relief or programs that help us through this short-term you know, biggest impact of this crisis?
So again, I would reiterate, the best thing to do is have a relationship with your representatives before you have a major ask or issue, because it makes it so much easier to talk through your issues when they know you and know the value of tourism. We are going to be asking for some really big pushes shortly to help jumpstart the recovery on a state level. So in the next week or so, we'll probably be ready to ask you, well, actually it might be a little longer than that, probably 3 or 4 weeks before we're going to be asking for a really big push. So I'd ask you to hold off on that right now, but it's always a good idea to meet with your representatives and build those relationships. Right now, the asks that we have of the governor, tourism promotion stimulus, employee retention credits, tax deferral. I won't read through all of these, but you can see the list of business asks that we have that he can respond to on a state level. In addition to specific asks on recovery, we're also asking to be at the table for those discussions, because as you might have heard the governor talk about last week, that as we come back, it will not be the new normal. There will be changes in the way that we do business. We just want to make sure we're at the table for those. So a couple ballot initiatives that are going through right now. These will be on the ballot in November. that's also thrown, COVID-19 has really thrown the ballot initiative process up into the air, because it's really hard to collect signatures when you can't be on the street and no one else is on the street, and you don't want to take a pen from a stranger. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. But there are a few that you should know about. The Consumer Privacy Rights Act, it would really change the way that you can build customer relationships, loyalty programs, have access into records. It does not have enough signatures yet, and it's on pause right now because of COVID. The other one I'm sure you've heard about is the Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash have gotten together to invest $110 million to fight AB 5 and to keep the ability to use their contractors without making them employees. They do have enough signatures already. They got it before COVID made things so difficult. They're authenticating them right now, but there's a really good chance that that will be on the ballot. And then one other just to talk about is the Recycling and Plastic Pollution Reduction Act. That would really change how you're able to use materials in your businesses, especially retail. Interestingly, with this whole pickup and delivery, we've really accelerated the use of plastic packaging. So we'll see where that comes out, and they're still gathering signatures on that. And then again, because everything is on pause right now with legislature in recess, I just wanted to show an example of a bill that we are supporting, one that we're opposing, and one that we're watching. Loretta Gonzalez-Fletcher is the person who introduced AB 5, and she made it affect a broad range of businesses, people who considered themselves independent business people or freelancers who would now have to be employees. And there was an outrage from everyone from event planners, travel agents, freelance writers, designers, photographers, a lot of people she wasn't trying to catch in that bill. She actually was really focused on just the Uber and Lyft, but the way the bill was written made it really broad. So she's working on some exemptions to that. One that we are really supporting is making a crime to enter a vehicle to commit a theft. As you probably have read, this is a huge issue, especially in our major cities with visitors coming. Homeless advocates have really fought back on this, saying that people could be breaking into cars just to sleep or because it's raining outside, and it's not necessarily to commit a theft. So visitors, if their cars are broken into, have to go back and testify that they had stuff. Oh, can I just go back for 1 second? Had things stolen. This is just an example of the difficulty of working in our state, and that bill has been pulled because of homeless advocates' resistance. And then we're working on affordable housing fees as well. So if you have any interest on individual bills, we can go back to that. But really unusually is that we're focused on federal advocacy right now because the COVID recovery resources are primarily coming from the federal government. We're working with U.S. Travel and other tourism organizations to work with Congress. And this is where you've heard about the CARES Act and the legislation that's coming out of it. This is where we've spent the majority of our time this session. We're looking for expanded eligibility for 501c6 organizations, specifically like Visit Morgan Hill, to help them because they were left out of a lot of the provisions in the CARES Act first round. So I know I'm covering a lot and there's not really time to explain them in details, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have either now or in follow-up emails directed to resources. But I wanted to end on a little happier note than all the bad news that we've been talking about. We've also heard from so many destinations and organizations of how they've brought creativity and goodwill and inspiration to their consumers and their residents during this time. And so we have created a page on our website with good ideas from the tourism community, and we get more every day, really interesting. So it's just great if you're looking for a little inspiration. I loved hearing about the wineries and bakery getting together. That kind of partnership can be really fun and interesting. just a few others. Visit Ventura is doing Thirsty Thursdays with wineries and breweries with virtual tastings on their Facebook channel. It sounds like you're already on that idea. Our zoos and attractions have really been hard hit, but they're bringing resources to schools and to fans and communities through live webcams and school activities, websites, and just kind of a nice way to stay in touch with their consumers. So I just encourage you to go to that website if you're looking for a little bit of inspiration, and we push it out on social media as well. These are the organizations who are our primary funders. We have over 200 members, but these are the ones who really underwrite the majority of our work. So I just want to give them a shout out. You can see the range of businesses there. So if you do have any questions, just wanted to share some resources from my contact information and my staff, and we're happy to help whenever we can. And then I'll open it up for questions if there's time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Barb. I appreciate all that the California Travel Association is doing, you know, behind the scenes, ongoing, on behalf of the industry, because like you said, you know, working with the legislators, having a relationship with them so that when something does happen, you're at the table, they know you, and they're ready to listen to you. So thank you for all that you're doing all the time on behalf of the wider industry.
Absolutely, we're happy to do it. We really are just here to help everyone. So it's kind of a fun mission, but even in difficult times.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we have a collaborative industry.
So does anyone have questions for Barbara on CalTravel before we loop back to our community brainstorming? If so, you can raise your hand or.
This is Michelle. I was just going to say you have 3 participants with their hand raised, starting with John McKay.
Okay, John.
Actually, I'm sorry. My question is going to be for Visit Morgan Hill, so it's really not California Travel Association at this time, so I could wait.
Okay.
John Horner.
Here we go. I had to unmute myself. Thank you. Thank you for your work. Kind of a, I guess, combination comment and question back to the idea of tourism leading us out of this. You know, I've been following the governor's comments and everything else, and it seems pretty clear that until there's a treatment and a vaccine for COVID-19, that encouraging people to get out and about and visit and all the things we usually do around tourism is not leading. It's kind of probably be lagging. So, you know, without having a better handle on the health situation, it feels a little bit deck chairs on the Titanic to be talking about travel leading us out of this quagmire. And I guess I'd like your response to that.
Sure. The timeline is very much still up in the air. Governor Newsom just talked this week about the fact that there's a framework they're looking at, but he refused to take any questions on what those dates might look like. We definitely want to take the advice of the experts on this, and we are not going to conflict with our government recommendations. We're, I think, doing what Visit Morgan Hill is doing, I think is a really good example of taking this time to plan what the comeback could look like and how to be the most effective in this new world, getting branding and messaging really ready to go so that when it is safe to invite people back, that we are ready to do it. We don't know still when that actually will happen, but very importantly, we need to be at the table as they are doing it. For example, Governor Newsom was talking about maybe having half as many people in a restaurant or at meetings in a ballroom, having half the number of people there, as well as other things like staff in masks and disposable menus. And there are some things that we can say, absolutely, those are great ideas, and others that we say that could actually put our people out of business. So is there a better way to achieve the goal here? If we really are looking at our hotels only being able to stay half full, or our restaurants only being able to stay half full, that could be that could put a lot of people out of business. So not overruling medical advice and professional advice, but being part of the conversation to find creative ways to do it responsibly in a way that can get us out.
And I'll add to that, within the new parameters, whatever those may be, whenever we may learn what those are.
Yeah, understood. And a related thing, our tourism-related industries generally are amongst the lowest paid jobs. I own a retail store. Unfortunately, I can't pay people very well. And I hope that we're all thinking long and hard about how people get healthcare coverage in this situation in particular. The notion that you get your healthcare primarily through an employer has really blown up in our face.
Yep.
And if you want to think about long-term advocacy, not trying to put the cost of healthcare on employers and not having employees dependent on their employees for healthcare, it could be a very big deal for a very long time.
Absolutely. And one of the conversations that we're having with our legislators on the state and the federal level is just how hard it's going to be for small businesses. It's great to give an injection of a loan for the short term, but it's going to be really difficult for small businesses to stay in business given minimum wages and healthcare benefits and all the other regulations. So again, being responsible, but bringing that forward in the conversation is part of what we're doing. I will say one good thing about California and travel is that compared to many other destinations like say Las Vegas or Florida or New York, most of the people who go there have to fly to get there, and it's one destination and it's crowded. We have the benefit in California, and I think a destination like Morgan Hill is a great example, where we have the ability to travel by car. Over 80% of travel and tourism is still in state. So although we're going to be hit, I think, internationally for a long time, from a local standpoint, we can, I think, do some safe promotion of encouraging people to get back traveling around the state. And I think smaller destinations are going to be recovering more quickly than our large gateway cities. That is the consensus of leaders right now. So you're in a pretty good position, relatively.
Okay, and I think our next hand up was Andrew Firestone.
So I have some comments about Morgan Hill specifically, but I'll wait. But as far as advocacy, one of the things that I heard you say, which I think we need to get ahead of, talking about what Gavin Newsom and Sacramento has to say about things about the new normal going forward. 50% in restaurants, 50% in ballrooms. Just so we're clear, that's not going to work. I mean, 50% of a business does not survive. So I think what we have to be very mindful of is if we allow these suggestions to get made in Sacramento without being involved in the process and making those decisions, if they come back, slapping each other on the back and saying, yeah, we can open it up to 50%, that's not going to, that doesn't work. And a restaurant is not going to work at 50% occupancy. A hotel isn't going to work at 50% occupancy. And there isn't enough money to print to keep those businesses open if you're thinking that way. However, there are things that we can do operationally from a hotel standpoint, from a restaurant standpoint, that are going to be able to keep the guests safe, keep the employees safe, all of those things without going so far overboard that we're going to just scuttle the business anyway. Because if that's going to be the idea that we're just, that we're going to go and be totally restrictive and everyone's going to wear masks and gloves and we're only going to be open 50% and whatever else, it's just not going to work. So I hope, I guess my point is, I hope that we can be advocates right away, at this exact moment while they're in their offices making decisions. These are non-hotel operators. These are not restaurant operators. These are not leisure operators. These are government people that are saying things that are going to make themselves feel good and are going to sound good in sound bites. We need to be involved at that point. And that's what I hope that Visit California and your organization are involved in, because you have those connections. Let's get those suggestions on how to operate smartly, efficiently, and in a way that we don't all go out of business if we get these things passed that aren't going to work anyway. So that's my suggestion. Not really a question, no. And it's a plea.
100% agree with you. That's exactly what we are trying to do. And I would encourage any of you to send me suggestions or talk to legislators, but I would love to have your ideas on how that works. Completely agree that some of the ideas coming out are just not going to work for businesses, and that's what we're trying to make our case very strongly with.
I just get scared that those ideas start to get legs because somebody hears it and goes, oh yeah, so the restaurants aren't taking anybody. Well, why don't we give them 50% of their occupancy?
Right.
Well, that still, even though that's better than zero, it's not good enough to survive. Right now, we are in this kind of holding pattern. Restaurants are only doing takeout food to try and keep their doors open. If you told them this was going to continue for 6 months, they will close. I would say 90% of them will close tomorrow. So we have to be optimistic. We have to be creative right now and work the problem from all angles. Now, granted, right now we are in unprecedented condition. We get that, but it's going to end. It has to. And the governments are going to run out of money. Counties are going to run out of money. Cities are going to run out of money. You're about to start doing your budgets here pretty soon. We have to get everybody back to work. And when it does, how efficiently and how quickly will we get people back to work? And the restaurants, and I'll disagree with John a little bit. I think that travel does lead us out of this. Travel out of necessity. This may not be aspirational travel. Travel out of necessity for work, for visiting family you haven't seen in 3 months. All of these things I think is a great, are great reasons and why Morgan Hill is so suited, because we are a driving destination. We aren't aspirational travel. Maybe we have one hotel that is, but for most of us, we are right outside of San Jose. People that have been cooped up for the last 6 weeks. Why not come down wine tasting, take a 20-minute drive and visit Morgan Hill? Sorry, I'll leave it like that.
No, great. Totally agree.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, our next hand is Edith.
Hi, thank you, everybody. First of all, I realized, council member, that I got in front of you, Councilmember McKay. Super quickly, big shout out. We have Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember McKay. I'm not sure who else. I know we have folks from Gilroy, folks from San Jose. Thank you for being here. I want to being cognizant of time. Thank you for the information. I know there's a lot of frustration. One of the things that I'm hoping we can collectively achieve in this session today is not just be a sounding board and what have you. I think that the comments section is a really good place to kind of give us guidance and comments and complain and share your frustration. But what I'm hoping we can do over the next 30 minutes is really figure out what is it that we can do today creatively to kickstart within our power this tourism economy. So recognizing that the city of Morgan Hill has no money to give grants or loans or what have you, what is it from an infrastructure perspective that we can do? So for example, and if it's okay, Chris, I just want to pivot to where I think we can just make something and get some creative ideas from the group. Yesterday at the town hall meeting, the question was asked, well, if there is a new normal and the new normal continues to be delayed in events and what have you, what is it that we can do? So one of the ideas that I had heard yesterday from other conversations was, more than ever, we need to allow the restaurants to have parklets. Well, why stop at parklets? I mean, they're gonna need the extra room, right? If they're gonna be needing to distance tables. So why stop at parklets? Why not do the road diet and really allow the restaurants to expand and have elbow room? And then what else can we do right now? Now, I realize that the road diet might be an issue. I'm not trying to debate ideas here, but I think that it'd be fun and it'd be great for us to hear from all of you. Any ideas that you have, any guidance that we can do without any money or with very little money to promote the recovery, especially leading with the tourism industry. So that's my pitch.
Thanks, Edith. So John, you've had your hand up, you've been patient. Let's keep what Edith said in mind and let's hear your question, John. And you're mute, please. Unmute. John.
How's that? A little bit better?
Great. Yes, we can
Okay,
hear you.
so this is perfect because this is where I wanted to go. First of all, what Edith just said, 100% behind it. I will always try to find ways to make our businesses downtown operate better, more, get them some more space, get them a little bit more of that, create more of a feeling in the downtown. We worked on it before. We know what it's like, and it was really good. It just wasn't the right time. Maybe the time's changed. So first of all, everybody keeps on calling me council member, but what I'd like you to do is look at me as a person who's been working on the tourism effort for the last 10 years, who worked with the grassroots efforts that was really, really important, I think, to get things going. And then also been working with the Wine Association for the last 8, 9 years to promote wines. I wouldn't even be a council member if it wasn't for my effort in tourism. So I'm not a council member today. I'm very interested in tourism. So my question is, we've had several attempts to try to get the downtown businesses, the restaurants, to work more closely with the local wineries, and that would be in the way of getting more local wines by the glass in the restaurants. We keep on running into the same stumbling block, which is, quite frankly, with the small scale operations, the wines tend to be a little bit more expensive. And when you've got a local wine that's going against an extremely popular premium brand, it's hard to, without some very aggressive cross-selling, it's very hard to justify the costs. And so we're not seeing our local wines in place in our local restaurants in the way we could. We've had several attempts and several thoughts. I see Angelia there, who is a person, or Gina, actually, and this is something that we've talked about. And I want to see if Visit Morgan Hill could possibly get involved with the Downtown Association, the Restaurant Association, and the Wine Association, and see if they can put together a formula where they can actually help somehow make it reasonable to bring some of the more costly local wines into our local restaurants, get them sold at a reasonable per glass rate, and then therefore we continue to essentially scratch each other's backs. Though the wineries are sending customers to the downtown could be promoting the local wineries. So is there a role that Visit Morgan Hill can play in that equation? That's my question. And also, how long will it take for us to get parklets done and get a complete streets program going? Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think that that's something that we're vetting and exploring in the strategic planning process. So something that's coming up is our focus groups. So we'll have focus groups for the specific segments to talk about these ideas and then distill them down, figure out what works, vet them, explore them, and put it into the strategic plan. So as such a new marketing organization, Visit Morgan Hill is not doing any advertising yet. We're not doing any consumer marketing whatsoever. So this strategic plan really is the platform for how we move forward. And so there is opportunity for the community input and ideas such as what you just explained regarding wine and getting our local wines in the restaurants. So that's something that I think we can sink our teeth into and dig deeper in through the focus group and branding community input within the next several weeks. So we'll be calling upon the different segments and working on this strategy together as we're discovering that these parameters of, when people can leave their homes again, we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. So we're going to remain adaptable, perceptive, and proactive.
Okay, and just ask if you need help, I will help.
Fantastic, thank you.
Do you have other hands up, Krista? Because otherwise I was going to suggest, even if you do, we have the chat going. Feel free. I'm really asking you to just throw out your ideas. Crazy is welcome. It's okay. Let's just be outside of the box. But I know we have McCraney. Thank you for joining us, sir. Love to hear any thoughts you have. Mariah, you are here even though you have little kids that are probably like knocking at the door. You know, from managing the community center and the events facilities, what should we be thinking about? I know you've been in recreation for many years. Love your ideas. I think this is where I'm thirsty, I'm hungry for creative ideas of something that we can tangibly do right now within limited resources.
We have 3 hands up, and there are some comments in the chat box. So I believe Nancy, you had your hand up.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name's Nancy. I'm a local resident for 25 years and an art teacher. I just had an art retreat in March on the 11th and 12th. I'm really interested in that part of the tourism, bringing people to our town. But Edith is asking us for creative ideas, and something that I've been doing in my neighborhood is having Saturday gatherings where we meet at our local pocket park. And every Saturday we all check in with each other. And this will be our 5th one coming up. So I would like to suggest we start small with whatever we try to throw out there. I think if you start with small groups, things tend to work well. And so that's one suggestion. So you start going out of your house to meet with your neighbors, and then maybe the neighborhoods can, I don't know, somehow we can grow it that way. The other thing to suggest is build on models that were already successful, such as the downtown wine stroll or the beer crawl. We have those, but you know, we just have, and they're super popular and people will turn out, but if you could space them out or stagger them or have it be in, you know, smaller groups, increments, that will at least give people a sense of normalcy and something they like to do. So those are my ideas. So, but I'm glad to be part of this group.
Thank you, Nancy. Sean.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. My name is Sean. I'm the new director at the Morgan Hill Outdoor Sports Center. I'm glad everybody's doing good and safe. I was thinking about some stuff while we're all on this call, and Edith, you kind of hit it a little bit. What my thought process was is, you know, we've done a really amazing job so far with the sports center. We've done a lot of upgrading. We have the facility looking really nice, but unfortunately, this whole pandemic has hit us really hard, and I'm worried that it's probably going to hit us longer than other people too, because with the sports gatherings, they may, you know, who knows how long they're going to put a stop on that. So one of my thoughts is kind of similar to what Edith was saying, is that maybe we can work here. You know, we have over 20 acres of nice, beautiful grass here, right? Or we can maybe team up with restaurants and have an idea of getting people to the outdoors and eating, and you have plenty of space to separate people where they wouldn't be close to each other. I don't know if that's something that would help restaurants or not, but we definitely have the space, we have the grounds, and we can try to work, like Andrew was saying too, operationally to make sure that is safe going forward. But it's obviously going to depend on what comes down in the future months on regulation and stuff like that. But it was kind of similar to what you were saying, Edith.
Thank you, Sean. And I just saw a note that the Downtown Association and the Wineries Association have been tossing around an idea for like the long wine and dinner pairing, kind of like outstanding in the field. So there's lots of great ideas, and thank you. I mean, if we need space and distance, Outdoor Sports Center has that. We also have a hand up from Mayor Pro Tem.
Hi, this is Yvonne Martinez Beltran, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, everybody, for being on this. Thank you, Krista, for leading this, and Edith. I think this is a great idea, and everyone's just trying to do what they can to pitch in. I wanted to make a few remarks. One, thank you, Andrew Firestone. I realize that this is a hard time. I don't think anybody wants to do, you know, just what feels good. And I take your comments to heart, because they're hard words to share right now when so many people are hurting, and you know that, but you are one of them. And so I think absolutely that people will continue to advocate on behalf of that, and with real solutions that, as you say, can be applicable. I also want to make sure, you know, as we're talking about how we do things, is that we keep the health in mind, because that is why this is happening, is because of our healthcare. So while we are talking about how we open and where we open, I think outside is a great option. The road diet, you know, that Edith talked about, while it might not be popular, that might be the only option we have right now that's available to help our small businesses in our downtown. And so it's not really about what's popular, it's about what will work and what are the limited options that we have. And we need to be able to move forward in that direction, and support each other in some of these hard growth areas, because it is going to be some hard work. You know, maybe people wouldn't go for the road diet necessarily, but when you've seen that your downtown is shuttered, that is a wake-up call that we must do things differently. And so I'm hopeful that there will be some support for that, because I think it really will help with people who are afraid. There's a lot of fear and afraid to go and eat, afraid to get sick. So if we can provide those opportunities for people to be eating outside, we're going into a much better climate right now. And I think it's an opportunity for us to have a better recovery. I love the idea about doing some pairing outside in the fields. That was another comment that I wanted to make, as far as maybe some of the sports and team events that are not so high contact. If we could look at how we might be able to do something with that, I think that would be great. And then even the pairing of perhaps a hotel with a winery, with a restaurant, working as a team, and something very, as I don't remember her name, but her first name was Nancy, was saying starting small. But if there was a partnership that kind of went from somebody where you stay to where you eat to where you are entertaining with wine, and they know that there is some type of a partnership there, you all have the same idea of what the sanitization and, you know, the rules of social distancing are, and you've all kind of agreed on that, people might be, I think, would be more encouraged to take that route and work, you know, and attend something like that. And then the other thing would be maybe our seniors who are more active, who are in assisted living, and perhaps going to them and doing something for them there, as far as bringing entertainment or dinner or wine pairing there. And, you know, they, of course, are going to have people who are coming from out of town to visit them and stay with them. So that's really all I have. I just want to encourage everybody, if you have any, I'm happy to support and hear, and I'm interested to hear what your ideas are. The city and Edith are doing such a tremendous job. Brittany, Krista, thank you all for your effort. And I'll leave it to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are great ideas. I'm furiously taking notes as this conversation unfolds. We have another hand up. We have Andrew and then Edith.
Sorry, this is my other comment I wanted to say about Morgan Hill specifically. My first one was advocacy on a state level. But when it comes to Morgan Hill specifically, I think that we have to think about this in two tracks. I think we have to think about locally getting people, you know, out, restaurants, back to normal, and that's important. But I think on the Visit Morgan Hill side, what we're trying to do as a board is to bring people from outside into Morgan Hill. And I think those two tracks can be going, you know, simultaneously, but I think it's two different efforts. And nobody knows what the timing is going to be, but at some point things are going to get back to a sense of normalcy. Now, what that looks like or how long that takes, we don't know. And Krista and I spoke yesterday, and what we all need to do is to be as prepared as possible once things do get back to normal. If we find ourselves back here having a brainstorming session when things are back to normal, it's too late. We need to have a message, we need to have marketing, we need to have materials, we need to have all of that stuff ready, even if it's gathering dust on a shelf somewhere. But the day that we feel it's appropriate, when we feel that it's safe, when we feel we're not putting anybody in danger, obviously all of that stuff taken into consideration. But at that point, we have to launch something that is so well thought out and complete and covers restaurants and attractions and hotels and all of those things. And one of the things that I think we can be thinking about are what things are we already doing that the public doesn't think about. So in my hotel, for example, we're already implementing operational changes. We have tape that is 6 feet apart as somebody is checking in. Not that many people are checking in, unfortunately. But if there were people there, you would have 6 feet of separation, hand sanitizers, single place you could think of. For restaurants, you think about all the cleaners and the materials that you're already using. That might seem second nature to you, but to your guest, it might be comforting to remind them of that. So now the messaging changes. When we clean a guest room at our hotels, it is 20 times cleaner than any bathroom you're going to find in any home because we use professional grade cleaners you'd find in a hospital. So I think changing the way that we think and the perception is important to start doing that now. So when it is time to get back to normal, we hit the ground running and we're not back having a brainstorming session saying, now what? So I just want to be proactive and work the problem from every angle. And it's great that we have on this call, we have the city and we have the chamber and we have all these different stakeholders in here to think, what can we do collectively as Morgan Hill? Because if my hotel does well and nobody else does, that's not going to work. It needs to be a rising tide for all of Morgan Hill coming out of this. And then I'm getting off my soapbox.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll kick it over to Edith.
I'll pick it up from there. So I think this is the best time to get this strategic plan and branding done. I was hoping that, frankly, Al was also going to be on the call today because he shared with us some crazy increase of traction that he got when he changed the name of the winery to Mohai. So he was excited about launching that idea. And I am so excited to see Angelina work so hard. I mean, if there's any silver lining here, I mean, I know that her screen is not showing her right now, but if you've been following Angelina, she has her mask and her gloves and she hasn't stopped like packaging those bottles of wine. So good for you, Jean. I know you're on the call as well. So for me, coming back to, I'm going to continue to press on what it is that we can do. So what I'm excited about is getting this branding done, hitting the floor running. I think that the community might be reluctant to maybe get on a plane, but they will want to get out. And this is our chance to promote what we have right here. We are in the best position to really promote our area. What I think about and the things that I worry about is when people come out and downtown is a little bit sleepy and quiet, what are the little things that we can do creatively? Nothing terribly expensive, but what is it that we can do to kind of bring something new? So if there is public art, beautification and placemaking, that is something that we can create. If there's a partnership, we can partner with Gilroy and San Jose to have a broader South County marketing arm. So once again, I'm looking at ideas, and feel free to throw crazy. I'm looking for crazy here. You know, from a city perspective, this is our chance where we can ask ourselves, how do we need to relax some of our regulations? What are the things that we can do to promote? We allowed, for example, right now, we're allowing the restaurants to convert their parking spaces in front of them for takeout. Very small token. Well, what else should we be doing?
All right, thanks, Edith. Someone just said bike party through downtown. Our board chair, Michael, has his hand up. Michael, do you have something to share?
You know, just a concept. I know we're throwing a lot of things out there. You know, there's two avenues that would be a great approach to look at. I'll speak to you as sort of a general manager of a hotel rather than an owner. There's a micro and a macro to this. As we move out of things, there's going to be a need for help in creating revenue for hotels, restaurants, organizations in the ones and twos. it's not going to all just be big picture. So how do we do that together? Is it packages that we put together for tours to museums and historical sites along with hotels and with dinner downtown? Is that something that we want to take on? Is that something that we have the tools to communicate about? So I would suggest that as a board that we consider, and Krista as well, we could put together, that we use our common good through Visit Morgan Hill to create some sort of communication so that this conversation doesn't stop today, that it continues on, so we can do exactly what we're talking about with ramping up. On the macro side, I wanted to share something, and I agree with Edith. I wish Frank had been here, but he is probably busy. In our last board meeting, he actually discussed in his venues, the Granada and Willow Heights, he has actually seen not necessarily cancellations of weddings and events, but postponements. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I just want to reiterate, at least in my opinion, that while we come out of this, it's going to come out in the micro, and then it will transition to the macro. So yes, us as a board, we need to look at, and we need your support in the concepts of what we're doing branding-wise, but we will be looking at the small little chunks of things that come in here at first, and we need the tools from you guys and the information to be able to get together. I said at the beginning of this that we need to hold hands to do it. Backyard sales is something that we talk about in my brand and my portfolio quite often, but it will be key as we move out of this. I talked with Krista yesterday, and there's something to share with you in an opinion. Maybe Andrew can jump in this because he has a wider view in multiple areas as well. But when the economy actually does great, larger urban areas actually see the benefit the most. When you have more money in your pocket, you're more willing to go outside of your local area. Maybe you go to Paris, maybe you take a trip with the family to London, or you go to New York, or you spend that huge amount of unnecessary money at Disneyland. As you have a little bit less money, and Krista knows this from working in Santa Cruz, where I work with her as well, that becomes very economic. Where can you take that money and use it to the best of your benefit with not, breaking the bank? And that's people coming from different drive markets into our area. So I know Chris is working on figuring that out, but we have to have something prepared. So if you have a museum tour, if you have an art center or an art program, we need to hear all that sort of information so that we can collaborate and put everything together and be the vehicle to be ready for our community for what is to come. And I tell you, as I said before, there is good things to come. So just a concept to throw out to you. A thank you to everybody as well for continuing the conversation, and I'll kick it back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Michael.
I was going to say, I think Kathy Sullivan is also raising her hand virtually.
Okay.
And I don't know if Gene is trying to unmute the phone because I see him working. So to unmute the phone, I mean, at the bottom right, bottom left, you can see the mute and the video. Are you not seeing that?
No,
oh,
we just didn't want to interrupt. He had some technical issues.
Yeah,
so.
Thank God for my assistant here.
Okay. Yeah, we have 7 more minutes, and we have Jean, Kathy, and Daniel Fenton lined up.
No, I just wanted to make a comment. I want to thank everybody for their input. I mean, we're all in this together, and we're all in a survival mode. So, and I think the recovery is going to come from the center out. I think it's going to start at home. It's going to, and then expand. So we're in a good position. We've got a lot of people real close to us that'll be able to come down and visit us. But I wanted to comment on John's thing about the wineries and the restaurants working more together. This has been a flag I've been raising for 20 years. So it's just at this point, it might be a time for everybody to reflect and how can we really help each other survive and not worry about the big distributors and all the stuff that they give you, but to really help the local guys first and expand out. It's been frustrating going to restaurants and you've got 40 or 50 wines on the list and maybe 5 local wines. So if the local restaurants in the community don't embrace the wineries how do you think visitors are going to look at it? You look at other areas, that wine regions, their restaurants bend over backwards to promote them because they know they bring them business. And we can do the same thing for the local restaurants. So it's a time maybe to rethink everything. So our association's here to help. It's not about the pricing. It's not about the quality, because we can compete. Got great wines. So I better get off my bandwagon too, but I do appreciate everybody working together, and we will make it through this together. Thanks for everybody's input.
Amen.
Thank you, Jean. Thanks,
I'm going to
Jan.
unmute it now.
Thanks. Okay, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy Sullivan, president of the Morgan Hill Historical Society. And I want to thank everyone for their efforts. We've, for a long time, we're all volunteers, so we don't have a big arm to reach out and develop a lot of partnerships and publicity. But Michael mentioned museums, and I did type a comment in the chat. It's been a long time since I've looked at the study and the research, but museums and historical locations in communities are a big draw for a lot of tourists. A lot of them will Google local historical museums, sites, associations to come to a community and understand the background of that community and what they have to offer. So we're in a very fortunate position in that we own a landmark at the north end of town, which is and can be very visible. And we've got a lot of space, so we can attract more visitors. And it would be, you know, I've mentioned this a few times, a good partnership in that we would end up being the, shoot, right now I'm losing track of the term, but the place where people could come to the community and gather information. So once they come and learn the history, then we have promotional literature there to send them on their way. Historical sites, restaurants, we have a lot of businesses in town that partner with us and donate to our cause. So even putting links to those official partnerships on, we now have a blog, we have an excellent website, we have a Facebook page, we do a newsletter. So there are a lot of venues that we can get information out to our membership as well as others. Losing track now of what else I can say. I just would like to see historical sites and museums and other, we got to TAC, other ones in the communities to be better publicized in literature and information that goes out to the community. So I think our city could do much more to utilize Villa Miramonte. Ultimately, which is the historical site, ultimately it is a city park. We happen to hold the title to it right now, but our charter mission because of that means that we have to be open to the public for recreation and educational purposes. So thank you, and I appreciate you allowing me to throw that in.
Thanks, Kathy. Mm-hmm. And yes, you know, as I mentioned, the focus groups will be a key community input point throughout our planning process, and those are all wonderful ideas. Daniel Fenton.
You know, two comments. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Two comments here. One, just a little bit, and some people mention this about sort of practices, and you think about, and we're looking at data on this already, and you think about sort of if you will, or before vaccines arrive on the scene and after things are lifted in terms of the sort of opening up flexibility. You know, if you think about an opportunity for us as a destination to sort of embrace this ourselves, so not necessarily just whatever the sort of state guidelines are, but how does Morgan Hill think about this question of safety and cleanliness and interaction and these sort of pieces? And could we be different than others in terms of, you know, sort of how we respond to this. So it's kind of like we're taking it seriously, but more than that, we actually believe in this in terms of the way to do things. I mean, Andrew mentions issues about reducing capacity, and I totally agree that's not realistic, but there's a lot of things we can be doing, right? Mm-hmm. That we can show. I mean, I think a lot of the hotel companies are now studying new ways to do things so that when a guest walks in a guest room, they're going to actually know that the practices are different than they've been in the past or whatever it may be. So, you know, we may have an opportunity to come out right out of the gate and say, we're thinking about this, we're proactive here, but it's actually something we believe in. So that even if you're a day visitor, we want you to really feel safe when you come into Morgan Hill because we think about this. And so that may be something that is fairly easy to execute. And you think about, you were talking about all the partners, whether it's a chamber, we could do something. There could be maybe 4 or 5 key things that we're all doing. And the only second point I make is Chris has referenced strategic plan because obviously we're involved. Sometimes when people hear the word strategic plan, they think, oh boy, so here we go. Here's a big lengthy process. It's going to take forever. And, Edith talks about moving quickly. I mean, I think the goal in the strategic planning process is to be able to do things while we're doing it. So it's not just sort of wait till the end, but as things come up, how do we implement? How do we actually move things forward? So I just want to make 2 points, but I think there's an opportunity as a destination to think about our sort of proactive approach here and how we might articulate that.
Absolutely. I think some keys are, remaining flexible, remaining adaptable, getting constant input and feedback, and none of us have a crystal ball, but we do have a lot of data and we have each other. So with that, I'm going to go back to our slideshow and share with you the upcoming opportunities. So I've mentioned a couple times we have tourism focus groups coming up, and again, that's part of the strategic planning and branding of Morgan Hill. So we strongly encourage your participation. Those will be divided up into different segments. Please share it, attend, participate. We really, this is the time and place for your input through the process. There's also upcoming business resiliency workshops, roundtables coming up, the series that this tourism installment is a part of. So that link is right here. We have a communications part that is kind of social media and marketing focused. There will be a retail and a restaurant roundtable. And then lastly, the Chamber of Commerce has some great Q&A webinars with industry leaders and representatives. So that link is here as well. And on this last slide is all of our contact information. So we have Barb here with CalTravel, as well as myself from Visit Morgan Hill, City of Morgan Hill Economic Development, and the Chamber. If you have questions about anything, please do reach out to us. We are happy to help you. And so with that, I would like to thank the Visit Morgan Hill board and our board chair, Michael, and everyone else who attended. Your input has been incredibly valuable, very engaged and dynamic group. So I look forward to the future and building it together with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.